1978, most Chrysler Corporation cars equipped with 318 electronic lean burn engines feature a new two-barrel carburetor, the Holley 2280. The 2280 has its own distinctive features which you'll need to know in order to perform the precise adjustments required for good drivability and proper emission control. We'll show you the important external and internal components, perform a float level adjustment, and cover the new procedure for performing external carburetor adjustments. The new Holley is similar in appearance to the Carter BBD and features a lightweight aluminum casting for greater resistance to high under-the-hood temperatures. The linkages are similar to our other carburetors. Notice that the accelerator pump rod linkage is in the inside hole. Be sure when removing the choke vacuum diaphragm to take the vacuum hose off at the carburetor to avoid bending the nipple on the diaphragm. Okay, let's examine the important internal components. The bowl vent uses a spring and an actuating arm to operate the spring-loaded vent valve lever. The area between the arm and the lever is important for proper bowl vent opening. Adjustment is done on the car by bending the tang up or down. This affects the contact area and changes the amount and timing of the vent opening in relation to throttle movement. Also located in the air horn is the operating lever for both the mechanical power valve and the accelerator pump. An adjustment screw sets the timing for opening the mechanical power valve in relation to throttle movement. We'll cover this adjustment later on the car. Incidentally, if you have to remove the mechanical valve, gently pry off the plastic cap and remove the E-clip. The accelerator pump assembly features a nylon plunger stem and a separate Viton cup. Cup removal and replacement is easy and involves cutting the old one first, then inserting a new one. This method prevents any damage which could result from forcing the cup over the stem. The vacuum power piston requires no field adjustment as it is set at the factory. It should be checked if it appears sticky or rough. You can remove it by gently prying on the retaining ring tangs. When reinstalling it, make sure you get the tangs properly seated to secure the piston. The air horn body features locator pins which make gasket installation easier. Inside the main body float bowl, the fuel inlet valve has the same relationship to the float assembly as in our other carburetors. When tightening the valve, a slight change in the valve position causes a significant change in the float level setting. Be sure you torque the valve to the proper specifications. The dual float assembly pivots on a hinge pin retainer, and the tang is the adjustment point for the float setting. When reinstalling, make sure to place the float baffle with its tabs in the down position. When you have access to the main jets, check them for tightness so they won't leak. This brings us to the vacuum and mechanical power valves. They require special care and caution when servicing to avoid getting them mixed up or damaging them. The mechanical power valve is located on the carburetor's vacuum kick side, and the vacuum power valve is on the throttle lever side. Special tool C4231 with its slotted blade protects the valve stem during removal and reinstallation. Since the only external identification marking to separate the two valves is the calibration number stamped on the brass seat, make sure you record it to help you identify the particular valve. Keep each assembly together to avoid mixing the individual components which are matched to each power valve. The power valves may look identical, but the needle on the mechanical power valve is 60 thousandths longer than on the vacuum power valve and has a different diameter too. Again, don't interchange the power valves or any of their components, as poor drivability would result during part throttle and full throttle operation. Locator pins are also found on the Venturi cluster for easier gasket fitting. Don't forget to reinstall the accelerator pump discharge weight and ball check before you reinstall the Venturi cluster. When separating the main body from the throttle body, pry against the carburetor instead of into the gasket for easier separation. A sticky gasket is used between the two bodies and should be thoroughly removed. When adjusting or removing the idle mixture screws, use care to avoid bending them. The throttle body also contains idle mixture restrictors, similar to those introduced on our 1977 carburetors. As you know, these restrictors are similar to the main metering jets in that the size of the small hole in the restrictor is precisely calibrated. You can reduce the fuel mixture flow at idle speeds by turning the mixture screw inward. But as you turn the screw outward, allowing the idle mixture flow to reach its maximum, any additional outward turns won't make the idle mixture richer. The flange gasket uses the familiar bathtub design without any notches and is interchangeable with the 1978 Carter two-barrel carburetors. Locator pins make reinstalling the throttle body a lot easier and provide good stability and air sealing. Now that you're acquainted with the important features of the Holley 2280, let's cover the adjustments you'll need to know. Before you begin your float level adjustment, check the part number stamped on the main body and refer to the service manual for the proper specs. We'll use the dry float setting method. Before you measure float height, check the torque on the fuel inlet fitting. Remember, there is about a 10-to-1 ratio of movement between the fuel inlet valve and the floats, which could affect the float setting. Measure the distance from the surface of the fuel bowl to the toe of each float. If an adjustment is necessary, bend the tang toward the fuel inlet needle to lower the float level and toward the baffle to raise the float level. Make sure both floats measure within the specifications listed in the service manual. For the fast idle cam position adjustment, place the fast idle speed screw on the second highest step and push the choke valve toward the closed position. You should feel a slight drag on the gauge. If the clearance is too wide, increase the connector rod length to decrease the choke valve clearance. If there's not enough clearance, decrease the rod's length to increase the clearance at the choke valve. Now let's look at the choke vacuum kick adjustment. Open the throttle to clear the fast idle cam and close the choke. Release the throttle. Apply about 15 inches of vacuum. Then move the choke valve slowly toward the closed position, causing the vacuum kick stem to extend out from the diaphragm with little resistance. Insert the correct gauge to check the vacuum kick setting. If an adjustment is needed, decrease the choke valve clearance by opening the U-shaped link. You can increase the clearance by closing the link. Now let's cover the choke unloader or wide open kick adjustment. Hold the throttle valves in the wide open position and press against the fast idle cam lever. Using the specified gauge, check the clearance. You should feel a slight drag. Bend the choke unloader tang up or down slightly to obtain the correct adjustment. The remaining carburetor adjustments are all done on the car. An important thing to remember concerning this carburetor and all our other 1978 carburetors is that you must set the curb idle speed first before you adjust the fast idle speed, the accelerator pump, the bowl vent, or the mechanical power valve. This establishes the correct position of the throttle blades at idle, which enables a more precise and accurate setting of these throttle-related adjustments for good drivability and proper emission control. Make sure you ground the idle stop carburetor switch so there will be no computer advance when setting either the curb idle or the fast idle speed. Be sure the screw is on the second highest step of the cam when making this adjustment. You've no doubt noticed that the propane-assisted idle adjustment method is used for 1978 and is now used for all of our vehicles. With the throttle at the correct curb idle, you can adjust the accelerator pump stroke. Check to see if the accelerator pump lever is flush to the air horn surface. If it's not, bend the lever here to adjust for a flush fit. After your adjustment, you'll have to reset both the bowl vent and the mechanical power valve. To reset the bowl vent, have the throttle at curb idle and check the spacing between the lever and the actuating arm so you'll know how much to adjust it. Bend the vent valve lever tang until you feel a slight drag on the specified gauge. To reset the mechanical power valve, hold the throttle in wide open position and push the adjustment screw down to see if any clearance exists between the valve and the screw. Turn the screw clockwise until no clearance exists. Back off one turn and the adjustment is set. Knowing the Holley 2280 carburetor, both internally and externally, enables you to perform the precise adjustments necessary for good drivability and proper emission control.